So this is really just to give you an overview of a cost project founded by and is led by Jean-François Gestin. That's not me. This is the majority of the people involved here are radiochemists and radiopharmacists. I'm the odd medical physicist in this group, and I'm taking part of a work package on dosimetry. I will not talk about that work package today, but rather give hopefully an overview of what we're aiming at with this cost project. So the background is really a lot of frustrated scientists working with Astatine-211 from chemistry side, from pharmacy side, from preclinical side, somewhat from the clinical side, and definitely from physics side, see that the numbers come out really well when we see what sort of fit is this to a micrometastases floating around in a cancer patient. And obviously we talk about TAT, targeted alpha therapy. Sometimes we jokingly say it should be targeted astatine therapy. But for the first time, and I think this was the first international coalition or consortium where we decided we should focus entirely on Astatine-211. So Jean-François did a fantastic job compiling everyone in Europe, and I think most of the people around the world, to come together, and he asked for funding and received some funding from the cost action mechanism within the European Union. So there isn't really much money into a cost action. You basically get funded for a couple of meetings per year for 3 or 4 years. But I think Jean-François has done a great job in compiling everyone involved, and we now get the Japanese participants and the American participants and the South Africans on board as well. So not only do we have everyone on board that is working on Astatine, we think we have a big bunch of those who would like to work with Astatine on board as well. This project is closing in October, and Jean-François has, as of today, not decided whether or not we should apply for an extension. So if you want to come on board or if you want to contribute, you might have your last chance at a global meeting scheduled in Nantes in France in October this year. So look out for that meeting. I hope you can all come and join us. So this was the background. That, again, these are Jean-François's slides. We all heard about this. You cannot make astatine. It's not available. You can certainly not transport it. It's not safe. If you do get a hold of it, you will never be able to label it to any sensible vector. And if you do, you will probably harm the patient more than you will do any good. So these were certainly the threats and weaknesses that were around at the time. And I think most of these things, these weaknesses, can be addressed in a relatively sensitive way. For the chemists, there is a strange paper that is now more than 20 years old with the title, The Chameleon Behavior of Astatine-211. And that was basically a question: what sort of species are we actually working on? What do the electronic cloud look like? All these things are gradually being solved as the years pass. And hopefully we can change all these threats and weaknesses and see some opportunities as well in this type of SWOT analysis. So this got funded. It's called Network for Optimized Astatine-Labeled Radiopharmaceuticals. So you can see immediately this is for radiochemistry and radiopharmaceuticals. But luckily they involve 1 or 2 medical physicists as well. So the vision, I will not go into the work packages or the detail, but this is the vision, because when Jean-François told his colleagues and at the European level, look, this might be a good radionuclide to look into in more detail, they said, well, first of all, we don't have astatine. So, you know, this will never become something available to the European community. So one of the work packages look at what can the future look like? And we don't really need many cyclotrons to fill the European needs. So this is the vision coming out of the cost consortium. Maybe we should have focal astatine nodes So instead of sending the radiopharmaceuticals to various countries, we send the patients to these Astatine nodes. And some of these nodes are already up and running, not more than 2, but the vision must be that maybe we can have 7 or 8 in Europe, and then we'll fulfill all the needs, at least for clinical trials, to see if an approved radiopharmaceutical will eventually come out of this consortium or future collaboration. So this is the logistics. If we can set up these cyclotrons, chances are we can meet the European need, at least for clinical trials. So today we have ongoing and current production in Nantes in France, but also in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I talked to you previously about the Swedish research, but the truth is we get all our astatine from the Copenhagen cyclotron in Denmark. So if you want to have fun, you try to get regulatory approval to bring astatine across a border in Europe, but that can be solved. Production coming on, we have the German cyclotron, Jülich, that is up and running. Not to full speed, but definitely I think I understand they have now produced a small trace amounts of astatine. We're all looking into Poland. They are doing acceptance tests as we speak. And Birmingham has produced astatine. It's been a long time since they last did it, but they say they are ready to produce on demand. So they are waiting for someone to say, we want astatine and we are willing to pay for it. So in this visionary slide, we just need 3 more production sites, and ideally that would then be placed in Romania, Hungary, and then the Czech Republic. Astatine can also be produced with a LINAC. And maybe, and this is visionary, it could be produced at LINAC in Hamburg and the one in Caen in France. So that would fill the production needs. Some of the things that have been debated here is how do you gonna transport the radionuclide from the production site? Even if the hospital is based close to the production site, you need to transport it to the hospital. And the outcome of work package 1 is it's probably better to transport it in dry form and then distill a target in a hospital radiopharmacy. So these are just the small steps that are taken towards this vision, how this will play out. Because Jean-François tells us when he meets regulators and the high-level European Parliament people, they say, how will this play out in reality? You can do research, you can try with 1 or 2 or 10 patients, but how will this become a reality 20 years from now when you treat thousands of patients? And this is an attempt to answer some of those questions. So where is radiochemistry and the preclinical work? Jean-François tells us we can now label anything from small molecules to antibodies. So the spooky tales that astatine cannot be worked with and no one knows what species we have is now being addressed. So it's fair to say that we can now label various compounds and use various ligands and vectors. And an important part is also that some of the technology used is now being patented. That's good because industry need patented rights in order to invest more money into this field. That's something very different from my job as a researcher, but I take it that it's important to have patent rights in order to bring in the funding that is needed and to bring in the interests from the industry. So we have done a lot of preclinical studies, and the question now is how do we move forward into clinical studies? So you know that there are clinical studies ongoing in the US, hopefully soon in the European Union, and Japan is taking the lead on this, and they have several clinical studies ongoing. So the COST project involves 22 member countries in Europe, and we have brought on board the stakeholders in America and Japan, and also South Africa, actually. So we now have over 110 participants in the various working groups. And this was last year's slide, presented in Cape Town in 2023. But there will be a final global meeting in Nantes in France in October this year, 2024. And if you want more information on this, we do have an up and running website called Astatine-net.eu. That's where you can get contact information and sign on, and please join us at the global meeting. At that time, we might have applied for and received an extension, or it will be the final meeting. We simply do not know. There has been some short-term scientific missions with lab involved. People from one lab with one type of expertise going to another lab. So that has been a good learning path for many of our young scientists. Expansion is ongoing. Jean-François is traveling to various meetings and meeting high-level people in order to tell about the existence of astatine and how that can play in this targeted alpha therapy field, because everyone knows about actinium-225, no one knows about Astatine-211. So we have a mission that Jean-François has taken to his heart. And we have received support from Nuclear Medicine Europe and the industrial partners there, and the idea is to influence the European Parliament to see if this can be something that Europe wants to focus on in the future. So we already have industrial partners with us, and the number of companies are growing. And at the end of the day, we want to focus on the positive side. So there are many opportunities. And for me as a physicist, just running the numbers give a very convincing goal in itself to see what would the absorbed dose be to microtumors and what would the absorbed dose be to critical healthy tissues. That's enough for me. That's not enough for Parliament people in the European Union. They also want to know, how are you going to finance this? What's the cost benefit? And how does it increase health and opportunities in Europe? So all those things are addressed by other people than me, obviously. Some strengths, I won't go into that again, but it can now be produced if there are a couple, 3 more cyclotrons in place in Europe. We're going to fulfill the needs of more or less all the European countries. And what is needed now is more proof of concept from the clinic. And the idea is to get more clinical trials going. We can't do this alone. Europe is big, many countries, but we need to bring in the other world also. And now there has been the inaugurative meeting for the World Astatine Community, where the cost part is one part of that. The Americans are on board. Ethan is here. He is one of the board members. The Japanese people are on board, and we also have South Africa on board now, and it's open for anyone who's interested. So even though the cost action might close in October, hopefully the World Astatine Community will continue to prosper. So the goal is obviously to see if we can put the potential of astatine in increasing health for various cancer therapies. And we want to advance science and motivate clinical interest, etc. And the deliverable for the World Astatine Community is really to raise awareness and give astatine a chance among all the other radionuclides that are there. So for academia, we need to have better knowledge on what is existing, how we can deal with astatine. For industry, look into astatine. It might be the second generation alpha emitter that can play a role in local regional therapies. For general practitioners, it's important to know what is going on. Where do astatine fit into this panorama of various radionuclides? And for the patients also, look, we have a radionuclide that might fit your type of cancer. Just raise awareness on all levels. So with that, I thank Jean-François for borrowing his slides for me, and I thank you for listening.